Hey guys, it's Miko from ML Sound Lab, and today we'll be mixing the best drum sound in the world within ML Drums. Let's check it out. So this is actually part 2. In the previous video we actually picked all these kit pieces and I used my logic to kind of explain why I did some of these decisions. And today we'll be actually mixing them together and making this into a preset that I'm gonna share with you, and you'll get it for free. That's pretty awesome. Okay, let's start with the kick. Okay, I'm not sure if anything needs to be done too much to it. It's flat, it's neutral. These frequencies are in a good spot, so I can just start boosting or cutting. Now if you boost around 200 Hertz, you get this kind of a full sound, but also at the same time you're competing with the snare. So I tend to like to cut just a little bit here. And you can see the impact, or hear the impact that it makes immediately. That's pretty much enough. Not doing a whole lot. Okay, we can actually boost the highs quite a bit, but ultimately I'll hear this better in the mix. I'll just guess that it's somewhere around 3 dB, maybe 4. And for the low end, we actually have a pretty good low end already. I think that's pretty good. As for compression, for kicks, I'm not doing a super fast kick anyways. So what I tend to do is try and capture just a little bit of that snap. If you go too long, it's not actually doing anything anymore, so "20 milliseconds almost gives me a slap to it." Now we're just gonna turn this one down. That's it. Then you can add some smack with the saturation. How much of the kick are you hearing through the overhead mics and the room mics? And just for reference, 0 is realistic. So if you leave these at 0, that is realistic. And what I'm really listening for here is that I want the main attack still to come from the close mic. So just making sure that the overhead is not actually louder than the close mic. Just the overhead. So yeah, it's a lot quieter. And then the overhead, sorry, the room. I think around there is good. And if you look at the overall graph, we have a very nice curve going very smoothly and evenly. And why I pay attention to that is that is something that makes the kick sound very natural. It's very full range and punchy. It is mid-scooped, as kicks many times are, but it's not overly mid-scooped. if you fully mid-scoop that, it's gonna sound very triggered. And you know, we are trying to sound as natural as possible. So I think that's gonna sound amazing in the mix. Let's jump to the snare processing then. Just a close mic. Now with the high-end boost, just paying attention to how much of those snares we're actually hearing. Around 3 dB is enough. Now you could also boost the bottom microphone of the close mics to get more of that snaring, but really you start losing the punch, because a lot of the snare sound and the punch is actually getting a perfect balance of the top and bottom microphone, and it's optimized when it's at 0. So if I start boosting the bottom mic, you will start hearing more of the snares, but ultimately you actually start losing some punch. You hear the snares but lose the punch. And if you go too low, you can't hear the snares at all. So it's very much optimized at 0. Maybe 3.5 dB of highs. And in the mids, that is the sound that you're trying to avoid. Let's actually look at the graph a little bit. Where in the mids do we have problems? It is around 600 Hertz maybe. So that is something I maybe want to cut just a little bit. It's not that prominent anyways. You want to be careful here, because if you go too low with the mids, once again you get a very unnatural sound. Now the low end, 180, around 180, let's put this there. Now we picked this snare because it already had a nice amount of that. Doesn't really need help there. Let's just boost a tiny bit. And then for the compression side, just a tiny bit. What I did there was I overcompressed so I can hear what the compressor is really doing, adjusted the attack so that I hear a very short snap. What that means is that it lets just a little bit of that initial transient through, but then grabs onto the snare as fast as possible. If the attack is too low, you actually lose all of your attack, so you want to keep some of that attack in. But you still want to grab the snare, not have the attack too high where it's not actually doing anything for the compressor. So that's what I did there, quickly explaining it to you. Then let's adjust the saturation. Ultimately, this would be something that you actually mix when you're hearing this in context. Right now it's kind of difficult to do that when we don't have a song playing, but first I'll go kind of through like this, and then let's listen to a mix and fix things there. Now let's start adding some snare from the overheads. I'm not actually a huge fan of having a snare in the overheads because it tends to not be mono and central, but it tends to be punchy. So if you have a lot of snare in the overheads, what you actually get is kind of like a crooked smack on the snare, meaning that it might lean to the left or right, or kind of have this slap back effect where it goes to the right and left. Kind of a very micro latency thing, but I don't like that. I don't want to do that. So for that reason, I many times want to have the overhead quite low. Well, not quite low, just a little bit lower. And let's go through the room track then. And this is likely the most important thing. Something like that. Now we also have the reverb here, and the room is feeding the reverb, so we can actually adjust the ring of the room now. Be short or long. That's pretty much perfect. Then I don't tend to actually process the toms at all. For the toms, really, it's more about having a really nice balance of the overheads and the rooms. And let's just have a listen to that. Yeah, I'm actually not going to use any compression on that because we are dealing with programmed drums where you can set the velocities very well. I don't want to mess with the attack of the toms. I just want to have an even performance, and I can actually edit the MIDI instead of trying to compensate for a drummer that didn't play it perfectly. So I'm not actually going to mess with this that much. And I actually tend to have none of the EQ in for this stuff. That's just how I run these things. We have 5 toms, so I'm gonna pan them somewhat. 40, 30, 10, 40, 80. That's good. Oh, and let's quickly go through the pleats for the room and overhead. You tend to get kind of a cardboardy sound if you have the overheads too high, so I'm leaving it, well, it's still quite high. And then the rooms. Now what I'm listening for there is the multi-dimensionality, big word, but it's very difficult to explain. I want to have the ability to envision the tom as being a short ringy tom or a long tom. So it needs to be right in there between, where I can kind of concentrate on just the close mic or choose to concentrate on the room track. So I think that is a perfect balance of that sound. So you can separate the attack, but you can also separate the ring. I'm not sure if anyone else hears this the same way I do, That's just how I hear it. And then hi-hat. Same thing with this. I don't really like messing with it that much. I try and keep everything as natural as possible. The thing that I do is add saturation, because I feel like hi-hat many times bleeds through all the microphones in real life, and to simulate that, you would actually saturate this signal just a little bit. So and with hi-hat, it's actually a lot more to do with how it bleeds from the overheads. So something like that. You don't want to hear too much of the room, because you want to be able to also hear these closed hi-hats and have them be tight. If you have too much of the room, it starts sounding super fake. That's pretty much perfect. And then for the ride, many times I feel like I have very similar settings for the hi-hat and ride for these things. So I'm actually gonna duplicate them and see if it works. Maybe not so much saturation for this. More like that. How about the bell? There was maybe kind of a nasty frequency poking through in the overhead, so for that reason I left it a little bit lower. And then the room. Something like that. You want to hear the ride from the room tracks, because it's actually super loud in real life, so that adds to the realism there. And then we have the overheads and the room track themselves. So really, we are pretty much done here. Now, all of this has been going through the master settings that I have here, which is a neutral EQ, but we do have some parallel compression going on already. This is something that actually came from the Yams default preset, but we will fine tune that to work better. Let's have a listen to this song thing that I have going on here, and let's see how these drums actually work. okay, I suppose I'm doing a lot of things, not explaining what I'm actually doing. I'm just listening for the track and seeing if something's poking out in a wrong way and tweaking. Usually at this point I like to actually listen to the overheads soloed and balance things based on, you know, how things sound on the overhead. So let's have a listen to that. Okay, the hi-hat is too loud here. Kick 2. Right could be louder. Toms are way too loud. Something like that. No, still too loud. Still too loud. That's better. Okay, now the hi-hat was not loud enough. Okay, that's better. Same with the room tracks. Kick needs to be louder. Just lowered the snare a tiny bit. Okay, I think everything is better balanced now. Let's have a listen to the song again. Yes. That's so good. Okay, let's tweak the parallel compression one more time. So I haven't actually touched this yet. I'm gonna compress this to the ultimates. And what you're listening for here is the wash of the cymbals, really. So that's, in my opinion, matching kind of the wash of the cymbals with the compression and then blending the dry tracks in. So this is dry drums, compressed drums, now finding a good blend between those two. Maybe a little bit too high still. That's probably perfect for that. Okay, that's it. That's gonna be good enough. You can tweak from here and make it perfect for your context. Really, this is as simple as it gets. I'm not doing much, and many times I just load up one of these presets that I've made and it works immediately. The main thing to learn here is that I didn't do big tweaks, and it's all about volume. If something is poking out, I'm not jumping to an EQ necessarily to tweak it. I'm more so going to the room or overhead tracks and seeing like if the volume is just too high. And if it's too bright, then likely too much close mic. If it's too dark, you need more of the close mic and things like that. And that is how you get a kind of natural sound. If your first thing that you jump to is an EQ to try and fix things, maybe you're thinking about it a little bit in a wrong way. Okay, that is it. I'm gonna be sharing this preset with you guys. Downside to this preset is that I'm using a bunch of different kits, but it should load up with the kit pieces that you actually have licensed, and then you can replace some of the other kit pieces if you don't have all these kits, so don't worry about that too much. And I hope that this Mikko's best drum kit works for you and have fun using it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and hope everyone learned something, and I hope you guys enjoy this preset. Thank you, bye bye. It's been Mikko from ML Sound Lab.